GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie, and we have a great show for you today. First topic we'll be talking about is going over Blake Snell and his really rough start to the season for the Giants, and just going over what's behind it. After that, we'll be going over Juan Soto, and his amazing season for the Yankees, and just my overall thoughts. After that, we'll be going over Spencer Torkelson being sent down by the Tigers, some Blue Jays trade rumors involving Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette, and then going over some roster moves around the league that I thought were notable. Now, before we do all that, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link GSMCpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get into our show today. All right, so we're going to get straight into it, and the first topic we have is going to be about, of course, Blake Snell and his start for the San Francisco Giants, and just overall what's going wrong. So Blake Snell this offseason kind of shocked a lot of people for staying out in the market as long as he did. The reigning Cy Young Award winner, he had won his second Cy Young as well. People were expecting him to get a mega contract pretty early into the offseason and not signing the contract that he ended up doing. Well, unfortunately for him, he lingered on the market throughout the entire offseason, even with having super agent Scott Boras, and ended up signing a short-term deal with the San Francisco Giants. Now, this is not the outcome anyone was hoping for, I'd say probably except the Giants, who got pretty lucky with this deal, being able to sign the defending Cy Young winner to a relatively reasonable price, and short-term as well, which is definitely important. So that was a lot of shockers there, and then going into the season as well, Snell has just completely been a disaster, really, for the Giants. I don't really think there's any other way to put it that's honestly nice. So looking at his stats currently for the Giants, he has made 6 starts for them. He has an ERA of 9.51. Yes, 9.51. That's real. And it's looked that bad. His walk per 9 right now is 5.32, so he's walking basically 5 people per 9 innings, which is not good. His home runs per 9 is 1.52, so he's allowing at least a home run per game. Walk percentage is very high at almost 12%. Just 50, left on base percentage is barely more than 50, which is not good. So basically, every time he's letting someone on base, 50% of the time they're going to score, which is not great. So overall, the season is not looking up for him. And after that as well, the peripheral numbers aren't looking that great either. A FIP of 4.62, which isn't as bad as an ERA of almost 10, of course, but still, it's still not good. I mean, you don't want an ERA almost at 5. You shouldn't want that. After that, you have his Sierra, 4.02. Again, not that great. You have his expected ERA as well at 4.58. So just not really great overall for Blake Snell, especially when you look at the peripheral numbers. So yeah, not looking great for him. And there's a lot going on with Blake Snell and his slow start for the Giants. And I think one of the big reasons is that people are seeing now is spring training. Now, if you're watching on stream currently, or if you're not, I'll explain it to you. I currently have a picture of Snell and Montgomery up on the screen. Now, you may be thinking, okay, well, I'm talking about Blake Snell here. Why in the world would Jordan Montgomery also be up here? We can talk about him. Well, we're going to tie this in. I want to just talk about how important spring training is. And I think that's one of the big reasons why Snell is doing as poorly as he is. Snell has talked about it in his interviews, his post-game, as has Montgomery, both players who were very highly sought after on the free agent market, ended up signing deals almost when the season started, so really didn't get a spring training. I shouldn't say really didn't. They didn't get spring training, simply put. And now you're looking at them. I mean, Montgomery's been not great for the Diamondbacks, hasn't been a disaster like Snell has, but he has an ERA almost 5. Snell, of course, has been an absolute disaster for the Giants. Just got injured again, re-injured his groin that let him out for over 20 games. So I think when you're a player who doesn't have a real spring training, who doesn't have that start of the season where you can just get back to facing action, get back to getting your body right, I think a lot of it is really going to mess you up for the season. In spring training, you get to do everything you do in a season, but there's less pressure. There's no pressure at all, I should say, actually. You get to be able to remember to like to face players, but not have to try so hard and try to, and put your body at risk like you're doing every day when you play. Spring training is a way to calibrate your body, calibrate yourself, get into season mode. And when you kind of just go in raw with none of that, and just jump into the season with no preparation, no training, and say, okay, time to go from spring training, time to go from the off season where you're facing no competition except maybe some of your friends and some people who aren't major league caliber, to facing some of the best hitters in the world straight away. I mean, you're in the NL West. You're going to play the Dodgers a couple of times. You just played the Yankees with Judge and Soto. Dodgers have Ohtani, Freeman, Betts. That's not a real recipe for success, and I think with these two, they're going to be an example of, in the future, of how important spring training is and how people are not going to take advantage of it. Our people are not going to take it for granted ever again. And it's also going to be interesting to see if players who are still lurking on the free agent market when spring training is about to start, if they say screw it and just sign a contract to get to spring training because they're worried about what's going to happen if they don't go to spring training. It's going to be interesting to see if that is the thing now, and we see less players go linger on the free agent market, even though when spring training starts. Now, it seems like it has not affected hitters as much. I mean, JD Martinez has looked really nice for the Mets, has a few big hits in the last few games, but I think pitchers just overall, you have to take more care of your body. You're so much moving pieces to being a pitcher, so many moving parts, and I think we're seeing that now with how underwhelming both of these players have performed. Again, mainly Snell, because he has been much worse, and he did just get injured over the weekend, so I did want to mostly talk about him. But overall, I just wanted to connect to spring training and just overall how important it is, and we're finally seeing how important it is, so I'm very glad. And yeah, just not great overall for Snell, and unfortunate for him that he did end up winning a Cy Young, and he is having these real rough times around it right now. So now, the impact on the Giants of Snell performing this poorly, I mean, they're fairly high, but I also don't think they're as high as maybe some other teams. The thing about the Giants is I really love their pitching, and I think most Giants fans love their pitching. You, of course, already have Logan Webb, who's healthy and doing great. I mean, Logan Webb's one of the true aces in this league. Really no ifs and or buts about it. He is an incredible player and a true ace in this league for the San Francisco Giants. After that, you have Kyle Harrison, a really nice young pitcher who's a top prospect for a good amount of years, finally coming up and playing really, really well. And that's another great pitcher you have there. Jordan Hicks, who the Giants had an incredible signing of this offseason, making him a fireballing reliever to a very good starting pitcher, which was a great experiment by them that has really worked out. So, hey, good for them. So that's another piece of this rotation. You also have other good depth pieces like a Keaton Winn and a Tristan Beck, who I think are very solid. You also have coming back Alex Cobb. Cobb, who I think is one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball, has been very, very solid since leaving Baltimore and signing that San Francisco contract, as being the epitome of just consistent for San Francisco. He's coming back in the second half. You have Robbie Ray coming back to the Giants as well, a guy they traded for in the offseason from Seattle that they did expect to be out for the first half. He's coming back as well, and he's going to end up being a really big piece for this team. I'm not sure how good he is going to be. I mean, there is a reason the Mariners traded him after signing him such a big contract. He didn't really perform great for them after winning that Cy Young with Toronto, but at the same time, I still think the Giants know what they're doing, and overall, that he should be a big piece for them, and I'm excited to see what he does end up doing there. So as much as you like Snell to be able to be healthy and be the Blake Snell that you signed, you have enough depth for pitching that you can let it go at least a little bit for now. I'm not sure what's going to happen when you get more into the year, and if he keeps struggling, what's going to happen there, because you're on the hook for 2 more years after that. I'm sure he's going to opt into next year with his performance right now, unless something crazy happens. So you have him. But imagine if he was healthy, and imagine if he was the Blake Snell we know. Imagine, let's say, that Blake Snell gets a full spring training, because in his eyes, that's mainly what is wrong, that he didn't get enough time to kind of cook over the offseason, kind of get seasoned for the season, no pun intended, and kind of got his regular training in the way. Imagine that. And imagine you had Blake Snell, you had Logan Webb at the top of that rotation, an elite ace tandem. You then had Kyle Harrison playing the way he is. That's 3 great starting pitchers. You had Jordan Hicks playing the way he is. That's 4. Alex Cobb coming back. That's 5. And then you have Robbie Ray coming back. That's 6. That's 6 really good starting pitchers there. Really good. Then you have Keaton Winn in there as well, who a lot of people like. I think also I like him a lot. He has really good off-speed pitches. Was rated last year, I think, as the best off-season pitch by some advanced metric people. So that's another great pitcher, I think. Tristan Beck is solid. So that's 7 or 8 people that you feel confident with in making a start for this Giants team. So that's a really big advantage for you guys right now, and that's a really big part of this team. Your offense isn't great. I think the Jung-Hoo Lee injury really hurt you, and Jorge Soler not playing well is also really hurting. But the pitching on this team is absolutely fantastic, and I think if Snell was healthy and he was playing up to the Cy Young Snell that we saw in San Diego last year and in Tampa a few years back, I think you could live with the ups and downs of this hitting core for the Giants because you would have such great pitching, and then you would maybe try to trade for a big bat to help this team out. So it is interesting to think about how different it could have been for Blake Snell and the Giants, but unfortunate that the season is going like this. Still a really great player. I still have hopes for Snell that he is going to end up being a really good player for them. I still think he's going to be a good signing, and hey, Giants get another year of him next year. He gets a full season of spring training with them, of course, assuming he doesn't get injured. So that'll be interesting to see next year if he ends up going back to the form that we all know about him, and that he was actually right, and that we were right, that spring training does matter a lot and is the main reason why not only him, but also Montgomery are struggling as well, because just going into the season raw, really no real type of practicing before the year with spring training. Minor league I don't think is really the same. I think just that the spring training, that atmosphere and everything you do there really gets you prepared for the season, and it is really unfortunate that we're not able to have one because of the contract situation. And it is going to be interesting, like I said before, see if that does end up impacting other people this offseason, be able to have a motivation assigned before spring training starts. So that is it for our first segment here, talking about Blake Snell and his start for the San Francisco Giants this year, and just overall how he's been. We're moving on to our second segment, which is going to be talking about Juan Soto and his amazing season for the New York Yankees this year. I mean, he's done absolutely incredible so far, and yeah, we'll be talking about that. So we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get run in the air, please use the link GSMCpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into the show today. All right, so second segment, of course, is going to be talking about Juan Soto's amazing season for the New York Yankees. Now, before we go into that, though, I'd like to say there were some significant news that broke while I was on break. There are actually two pieces that I did want to talk about. So first off, Jose Urquidy for the Houston Astros. He is apparently heading for a second Tommy John surgery, according to Alden Gomez of ESPN. It's not finalized, but it's looking likely, so that's a big blow for the Astros. I think I'm going to talk about that more tomorrow. I think that's a good segment, so be on the lookout for that if you watch tomorrow's show every day, 3:30 here on this channel. After that as well, Pirates player Tucupita Maracano, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, a former top prospect for the Padres who was the main part of the Adam Frazier trade a few years ago, is facing a lifetime ban from MLB for betting on games, and apparently he bet on Pirates games. So that's a big no-no, and so it'll be interesting to see if he does end up getting that lifetime ban. There are also apparently 4 other players under investigation by MLB for betting on games. So we saw it with the NBA this year. We saw it first off. We saw it already with the MLB. We saw it with the NFL and NBA already. with players getting banned for gambling on games. We saw it this year already with David Fletcher being under investigation, Ohtani's interpreter, and now we're going to see more players, I think, falling under that domino. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to see what players are under investigation and where this goes from here. So yeah, I'm not going to comment on that any further because we don't know more. But yeah, it's looking like Marcano will be banned from MLB for life if it does turn out to be true. But again, we don't know more, and we'll probably know more throughout the day. And if we do end up knowing more and it does prove to be a interesting topic, I'll be talking about it tomorrow on the show. So be prepared for that. So now going to our planned second segment. Sorry about that. There were some notable things that did happen over the break that I just did want to touch upon. So before we did that, but yeah, we're talking about the player everyone loves, Juan Soto. Now, Soto, of course, was involved in one of the biggest trades in MLB history this offseason. I'd say both times he got traded were huge trades in MLB history, going from the San Diego Padres to the New York Yankees in a blockbuster. Now, when Soto got to New York, I was very sad because if you don't know, if you might see the jerseys behind me, I'm a Mets fan, and I really wanted Juan Soto. Now, when I learned the asking price of Juan Soto, I was like, okay, I can't really be mad. The Mets don't have much pitching prospects. They're not going to be able to trade for him. But seeing him across town in a Yankees uniform, fitting so perfectly with this city, it really is just kind of a heartbreaker. Now, as a baseball fan, I will say it's awesome. Just as a pure baseball fan, it's awesome. Juan Soto fits the Yankees perfectly. I mean, the swagger he has, the confidence, the ability, it just fits those Yankee pinstripes perfectly. It fits the Bronx perfectly, and it's just a great fit of player and team. I think one of the best in a long time. I think it reminds me a lot of Reggie Jackson when he went to the Yankees, being one of the best players in baseball, and you knew it. Now, Jackson might have been a little more cocky than Soto, I think. I think Soto has more confidence than cockiness, but at the same time, I think when you're a player who is as good as Reggie Jackson or Juan Soto, you can be cocky. I don't really see any problem with that. You've earned the right. So going over Soto's stats so far for the Yankees this year, I mean, they're absolutely insane. So in over 278 plate appearances, Soto has 17 home runs, a WOBA of 439, which is absolutely insane. WAR already of almost 4. This is also a guy who doesn't play that much defense. Like, of course he plays left field for the Yankees, but he's really not that good over there. He's a pretty below average defender, I'd say. This is really all from hitting. So he's about to hit 4 WAR on the season, and it's barely June. And his weighted runs created plus is 191. Now, I know some people watching here might not know what weighted runs created plus is. If you don't, it is a stat that just talks about how good of a hitter you are. It takes into consideration a lot of factors, and it is my favorite hitting stat. And basically, the basis of it is 100 is league average. So if you have a weighted runs created plus of 100, you are a league average hitter. It is one of the first stats you see on Fangraphs, and you pull a player card up, so if you want to see it, go ahead. So basically what Fangraphs is saying is Juan Soto is 91% better than league average. That's insane. That's insane. 191 by June reminds me of Ohtani and Judge seasons the past 2 years. Absolutely incredible. I mean, his walk percentage is almost at the same as his K percentage, which is not a surprise for Soto, but still insane. I mean, his OPS is 1.031. His ISO is almost at 300, which is insane. I mean, this guy's just a beast. And we've known about it already. I mean, his barrel percentage is 20.4, which is 7% up from last year. So 20% of the time, he's barreling the ball up. His hard hit percentage is 60, man. I mean, just as a baseball fan, it's honestly incredible just to go through Soto's stats and just be floored about how good this guy is. I've heard stories about Ted Williams from my family members. I've read books about him. Everything I've seen is that he's just Ted Williams. He's Ted Williams in 2024. It's just incredible what Soto does, and he's just an incredible talent. Anyone trying to discount his talent because he doesn't run the bases well or doesn't play defense don't understand what they're watching. They do not understand what they're watching. This is a generational type hitter, one of the greatest hitters you'll ever see, and an absolutely insane player and an incredible talent that we have to take. We have to make sure we're appreciating while he's here, what I should say. Now, what I want to say is overall just how much Soto does fit with the Yankees, as I said. I'm going to talk about it a little more in the segment after this, but just seeing him in those pinstripes, it just feels right. Seeing him with those fans, with that historic organization, it just feels right. So the impact Soto has had on the Yankees is, of course, I mean, when you have numbers like this, you're going to have an insane impact. There's really no doubt about that when you have the hitting numbers he has. But really, another thing is just solidifying this lineup. Whether it was Soto or a bat who's still good but not as good as Soto, that's what the Yankees needed to do this offseason. You had Billy McKinney starting significant games for you last year. He was also good. Like, he wasn't bad. He was fine. But when you're the New York Yankees, who has Aaron Judge in his prime on your team, Garrett Cole in his prime on your team, Anthony Volpe, you can't just run these guys out and say, oh, that's it. No, you have to go for the big swing and you have to fix this. And that's exactly what the Yankees did this offseason. And oh my goodness, Soto has been incredible. I mean, just absolutely insane. I picked him for MVP in the preseason. It's on the show. It's on the channel. You look up my my preseason predictions. I had him as my MVP pick, so feeling pretty good about that right now. But I did not expect him to be this good. I mean, these stats in June are absolutely incredible. It's shaking up to be one of the best offensive seasons we've ever seen. And man, has being a Yankee really fit him. And now I want to go into another part of this segment about Soto and the Yankees, and that is the re-signing part. Now, we all know that the elephant in the room with Soto and the Yankees is, how long is he going to be there? He's a free agent after this year, and he's going to get a lot of money. Now, people think he's going to get $500 million. Personally, I think he's going to get $600 million. I think that he is indeed going to get $600 million. I thought he would probably get a few million more than whatever Ohtani got before that. Before Ohtani was a free agent, of course, but Soto's not getting $700 million. He doesn't pitch. So if I had to guess right now, I would think that Soto probably gets 600 over 15, which sounds insane, but when you realize Soto's going to be 26 when he hits free agency, and 15 years would only take him to his age 41 season, which isn't even that crazy. I think it is fair getting $40 million a year. You could even argue he deserves more than that with how much he hits. And is he going to regress towards the end of that? Sure. But what player isn't going to regress to the end of a 15-year contract? And I'm sure he'll be DH by year 1 or 2 of that contract. So he'll just be hitting. And I see him aging pretty well, honestly, with his swing. Again, he never really ran the bases well or fielded well anyways. So we'd have to see about that. But, yeah, I mean, will the Yankees be able to re-sign him is a big question, and it's something really to think about if you are a Yankees fan. I know a lot of them won't want to think about it with how good he's done this season, but you got to eventually. Now, going into the season, I thought there was absolutely no way they would be re-signing him. I just thought there was no way. I mean, you look at the contracts on this team, and it's still a valid point here. You have, of course, had Garrett Cole, you have Carlos Rodon, you have Marcus Stroman, 3 big contracts already for your starting pitchers. You have a looming extension for Anthony Volpe, whenever that has to come. You have, of course, Aaron Judge. You have Giancarlo Stanton, which is an albatross. Those are a good amount of big contracts. I mean, Rodon, Cole, Stanton, Judge, those are 4 significant contracts on the books. Significant. That are long-term and are going to be affecting your team for a long time. And adding in a Soto contract that is going to be historic and groundbreaking for the amount of years and money it's going to be probably, I just didn't know if they had the money to be able to afford all that. Yes, the New York Yankees, I understand that. But every team has a limit. I mean, even Steve Cohen has a limit. We've seen it over the past few years now. So I just didn't know if they would be able to. And I still don't know if they'll be able to. But at the same time, I think they're going to have to be. And I think he is going to end up staying in the Bronx. Simply because of how well he fits the Yankees. The swagger he brings to that team, how well he fits those pinstripes and the Bronx with his personality, the cockiness, the confidence, how well he plays the game, how much he interacts with the fans. I think the Yankees cannot afford to let a guy, not only this talent go, but someone who appreciates playing as a Yankee so much, and as a guy who loves playing as a Yankee so much. You could tell he loves being a Yankee. He said he has family in New York, he doesn't want to leave, and I believe him. I think that sorry about that. I just think this is such a good fit of player and team, that one of the best we've ever seen, that you can just not afford to let him go. Do whatever you can financially to keep him. If you got to attach a top prospect to get out of Stanton's contract, you do that. But at the same, I just don't. And if you got to bite the bullet on a few seasons of really being in the red for the salary cap, quote unquote salary cap in baseball, or for the Cohen tax, really, you got to do that. I just think you cannot let a player of this talent go, who again not only is this talented, but also loves being a Yankee so much and represents your organization so well. Really is great off the field as well. You hear nothing but great things about him as a teammate as well. I just think this is a guy that represents this organization to the fullest, and I think they need to re-sign him. Now, is it going to be easy to re-sign him? No, but I think he does want to come back to the Yankees no matter what people say. I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams that want him. Mainly, I think you're looking at two teams right now. I think you're looking at the Cubs, and I think you're looking at, of course, the Mets. I think both those teams have money to spend this offseason, or, of course, big market teams, and have a clear need for a superstar bat in their lineup. I think both these teams could provide trouble to the Yankees, and I think both teams would offer more, but I think in the end, he's sort of going to choose the money or staying a Yankee and still getting a ton of money. I think he's going to end up staying a Yankee. I just think it makes too much sense. I think he knows the value of being in the Bronx and being on a historic team, what that means for his legacy, what that means for him off the field as well. I do think he's going to end up staying, but it is going to be fascinating this entire offseason to see what does happen. Again, if I had to guess, I would think it ends up being a bidding war between the Mets, Yankees, and Cubs. Maybe one other surprise team jumps in there. Again, usually we would say the Dodgers, but I don't think that the Dodgers have enough money after signing Ohtani. I would also say the Giants probably, but I just don't think so to swing. Being a lefty would work with McCovey Cove and the Giants Stadium. But also, I also know there's a perception of San Francisco around the league with some players that it's not the best place to go to. I've been to San Francisco. I like the city, but people can think what they want really. So, yeah, overall, it is going to be very interesting to see this offseason. I don't think it's too early to start talking about it. I think it's the biggest storyline of this year, and it's going to be one of the biggest storylines ever this offseason. And it is going to be fascinating to watch, and I'm very excited to watch it. So, all right, so that was the end of our second segment here, talking about Juan Soto and his amazing season for the Yankees so far. Moving into our third segment, which is going to be talking about Spencer Torkelson and him being sent down by the Detroit Tigers, and my overall thoughts on it and the impact on the team. And so, yeah, we'll talk about that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, which is going to be talking about Spencer Torkelson and his season for the Detroit Tigers and him getting sent down by the team. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So, of course, a little background on Spencer Torkelson. He was the first overall pick by the Tigers in the 2020 draft, a guy who kind of came out of nowhere in college with Arizona State and became the clear-cut first overall pick, being a power-heavy first baseman for the team, and again, clearly becoming the first overall pick. I mean, there's really no debate. I remember watching the draft. Everyone knew who would go first overall. Was looked at as a really, really talented first base prospect, of course. I mean, he was the first overall pick in the draft, of course. So I was thinking that this would be a elite power bat for the Tigers rather quickly. I mean, he's coming out of college, so probably, only 1 or 2 years in the minors, like most college players, especially hitters. And it just hasn't been the case. And we're seeing it today, having the clear starting job for first base in Detroit, and he's getting sent down. He's now in year 3, age 24, and it is going to be interesting where the Tigers do go from here. So, looking at Torkelson's stats right now. So, first of all, his weighted runs created plus is at a 71, very below average, obviously. not really what you want to see, especially for a first baseman. Maybe if he was a center fielder who was bringing defense like a Harrison Bader, like a Kevin Kiermaier, it would be different, but he's a first baseman, so even if he was playing good defense, no one would care. So that's not good. His walk percentage is down 3 from last year, from 10% to 7%, which is not good. His strikeout percentage is at 24, so significantly higher than his walk percentage. That's not a good strikeout to walk ratio. His ISO is down from last year at 129. His BABIP is at a reasonable number as well, 2.53, so it's not even like he's getting real unlucky. And his max exit velocity so far is 109, which is around the same as last year, but his barrel percentage is really, really rough at 4.6%, 4.5% actually, so that's 10% below from last year. His barrel percentage is 38.7%. I mean, absolutely horrible. That's over 10% less than last year, so he's not barreling up the ball, he's not hitting it as hard. Really having a rough season so far right now for Detroit, and yeah, definitely is unfortunate. Now, when looking at this guy, you also want to look at the batting ball stats. Line drive percentage is down from last year. Ground balls are up. After that, his fly ball percentage is up, which is good though. And he's pulling the ball more, which is also good. But he's hitting it out to opposite field less. And his hard hit percentage is down significantly again, like I said, from last year, which is not something that's great. So overall, looking at Torkelson, it doesn't really seem like this is a guy who is just having a rough season. It seems like a guy who's had a rough go of it in the MLB. Now, last year, he wasn't great, but he also wasn't bad. I mean, looking at him last year, his weighted runs created plus was at 107, which isn't horrible, and before that, it was at 75. So this is a guy who, since coming up, hasn't really found his stride, and while he wasn't bad, I think a lot of people were expecting him to finally break out this year. First year wasn't great. People were like, okay, you know what? He's getting used to MLB pitching. Tigers don't have a lot of good players, don't have a lot of expectations on him. It's fine. Last year, okay, fine season. Not exactly what you want from a first baseman who's supposed to be a big power hitter, but he had good home run numbers. Next year, that's when he'll really break out. Third year, he'll finally figure it out. He'll go from that 107 to 125, 130, becoming a really elite batter. And he just hasn't. And the Tigers sending him down, I think, is a big showing of how they feel about him right now and how they think his future is going to end up with this team. And I think the question is, do we think he'll ever go back to being the Spencer Torkelson in college? Do we think he'll ever find it, quote unquote? Do we ever think he'll end up being a really, really good player again? And I'm not sure. I think that there's still a lot of talent left in that body. I think there's a lot of talent left in Spencer Torkelson, but it just hasn't been accessed yet. And for a first overall pick, and for a Tigers team that was supposed to be good this year and supposed to kind of surprise a lot of people, try to be competitive, it's very unfortunate. You were expecting Torkelson to be that power hitting first baseman in the middle of your order, end up being really good, and he just hasn't been. I mean, looking at this Tigers team right now, they haven't been horrible, but at the same time, they're fourth in their division, and they're a game under 500. They're very mediocre. And let's say if Torkelson was doing better, let's say if he was the power hitting first baseman they wanted it to be, how much better would they be? Where would they be in the standing? It's interesting to think about, and it is an interesting dynamic. So, overall, it is going to be interesting to watch Torkelson over the next few years and seeing what does end up happening. I think there could potentially be a way for him to get a fresh start. If the Tigers do end up shopping him at this deadline or in the offseason, I think that would be a drastic change from obviously where he came from, being the first overall pick, but I wouldn't be that shocked. I wouldn't be that surprised. I would think, okay, you know what, at least they're trying something with him, and at least it's better for both parties. Not even sure what his trade value is at this point, but I think a lot of people would be interested in Torkelson with just the amount of talent he has. So it'll be interesting to watch this year, seeing what does happen with Torkelson, but it's very unfortunate that he is playing this way and he is being this underwhelming for the team. Now, another thing I want to talk about is just the impact on the team. Now, again, not only Torkelson, but a lot of their young core that I was expecting to be really good has just not performed. Colt Keith, who I expected to be very good for the Tigers, who got a big extension before in the offseason to be a big part of this Tigers team, has not been good, has a weighted runs created plus of 67, which is not good, definitely not. Parker Meadows was so bad he was sent down, and looking at this Tigers team, I thought, Colt Keith would start at second and third base, you would have Parker Meadows be the center fielder and Spencer Torkelson be the first base. 3 young bats that I was very high on that I thought were going to do a lot of damage with this team and just with this core. But they have been heavily underperforming, and if they didn't, how much better could this Tigers team have been? Jack Flaherty has really found a stride with the pitching staff, and Tarek Skubal has been every bit as advertised in the starting rotation. I picked him for Cy Young, as a lot of people did, and he really has not. And he definitely has lived up to that hype. So it's just an interesting situation to think about how much better this Tigers team could have been if their young players simply lived up to this to the potential they had and ended up doing really, really well. But they haven't, and I guess we'll never know. But mainly I'm interested in Torkelson with the amount of promise he had coming out of the draft and for this Tigers team. I really want him to be able to find it and really want him to be able to end up being a really good player for this Tigers team, be the face of the franchise they want, be the next Miggy that they really were expecting. High standards, yes, but he's the first overall pick. I mean, I think it's very fair to put these things on him. He knew what was happening when he got drafted first overall. He knew what was going to happen when the Tigers called his name in 2020. So it'll be very interesting to watch Torkelson and this Tigers team's future. And going into next year as well, how will this young core play and how much time will the Tigers give them? Because you got a lot of good players on this team. It's not like the clock is ticking real fast, but at the same time, you'd like to get it going eventually. It's a lot of good teams in your division, so it's going to be very, very interesting to watch. So that is it for our third segment here, talking about Spencer Torkelson and the Detroit Tigers and him being sent down. We're going into our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about the Blue Jays and some trade rumors involving them, mainly 2 of their stars, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. So yeah, we'll talk about that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about some Blue Jays trade rumors and mainly involving 2 of their bigger stars, Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So, yeah, let's get straight into it. Now, over the weekend, we had the Blue Jays general manager go on radio and talk about how he would like to extend both Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and not trade them. So that was an interesting little bit of a tidbit from there. As I've talked about a little bit on the show before, not really in depth like I am going to be right now, I think they could potentially both be trade candidates for the deadline, and I think it would be wise for the Blue Jays to potentially look and see what they could get for both these players with where the team is right now. I mean, looking at the Blue Jays currently, they're 5th in the AL East, 5th, and they are not looking great. I mean, they're 5 games under 500, 12.5 out of the AL East crown, and it's not looking great. And I think one of the things right now with the Blue Jays is the core is kind of looking stagnant. It's just kind of looking like there's a lot of staleness there with the team, and it's not looking new. And I just think there needs to be some changes. And Blue Jays general manager is saying that he doesn't actively plan on trying to trade these guys, but the question is, should he? And honestly, yeah, I think he should. Now, what you could say is, what you could say is, you shouldn't really sell them at their lowest value, which does make sense. I mean, you have Ross Atkins, who is the Blue Jays general manager, saying in the quote, "It just doesn't make any sense for us." He also supported the manager, John Schneider, in that. I know a lot of Blue Jays fans are not happy, but so that was interesting. But it is a question to say, okay, should we shop these guys at their lowest value? I mean, you look at Bo Bichette right now, and he's not doing great. I mean, he has negative WAR. His OPS right now is at 627, and it's not exactly like he plays great defense, so he's not really being as valuable player right now. He did have a good season last year, so that could potentially factor in. And a lot of the time when you're trading for players, you want to see you want to project what they do in the future, not their past stats, but at the same time, their past stats also do affect your evaluation of them in the future. Now, Vladdy Guerrero is an interesting one, as he is honestly having a pretty good season. I mean, his OPS is almost at 800. You look at his weighted runs created plus right now, it's at 133, so he's having a really good season. So you could potentially get a lot for him. But looking at the Jays right now, it's just going to be interesting to think, what could they do to spice this team up? The AL East isn't getting any worse. You've got the Yankees who are going to be there for a long time. Red Sox surprisingly doing really well. Orioles, of course, look like to be a dynasty in the making. You have the Rays, who might be good next year when they get all the injured players back and just kind of get the team back in order. That could also be a factor. And looking at this Blue Jays team, it's very mediocre, I see right now. I don't think they have that face the franchise guy. I don't think Vladdy or Bo are those guys. That's why you tried getting a Soto this offseason. That's why you tried getting an Ohtani this offseason. Obviously, you weren't successful, but I think that's showing why. And looking at both these guys, I do think they should look to trade them, honestly. And I think they should look to trade a lot of these players. I think they should just get the old core out, kind of go for maybe a rebuild for 1 or 2 years, and kind of see where they are after that. Looking at Guerrero right now, I think the question more with him is, when you trade him, you're kind of admitting defeat. Guerrero was kind of the chosen savior for Toronto ever since coming up. Was a top prospect, really, as soon as he had professional baseball. You had all the great storylines with him in the Blue Jays, being the son of a Canadian baseball legend in Vladimir Guerrero Sr., being born in Canada, being a great model off the field and on, being just a great player for this Blue Jays franchise, being kind of the savior for this team. And trading him, I think, would be admitting defeat and going into a rebuild. So, but you look at how good he's doing. You look at the year, you look at the year and a half control you have on him. You get a lot for him. And are those prospects worth kind of telling your fans this is a rebuild? I don't know, and it's going to be interesting to see. Now, Bo Bichette's an interesting case, as he hasn't had a great season this year. He did last year, but he hasn't had a great season this year, and you'd be, again, selling at his lowest value. But maybe you think that it's time to move on from him and just give him a fresh start. That's also a possibility, and it is going to be interesting to see. But I think overall, I think the Blue Jays should look to trade some of these players. And looking at the roster, there's some other guys who look to trade. I think Kevin Gausman is another one who has 2.5 years left on a big contract, but a really good starting pitcher. Who, yes, hasn't had the greatest season this year, but you still had a lot for him. Jordan Romano, I think, would also get some nice pieces back. Yusei Kikuchi, who only has 1 year left in his contract, who definitely would be traded by the Blue Jays if they do end up selling at the deadline. I think Gausman, Bichette, and Guerrero would be more extreme cases of going into a full rebuild than just selling at the deadline. You also have some other batters. I think even George Springer could look to be traded. Not sure if anyone would want his contract, though, but it's going to be very interesting to see what does end up happening with this Blue Jays team in the future, and just overall what is going to end up happening with this core if it does kind of get dismantled a little bit. I think that they are kind of stagnant right now with where they are, and they are just kind of mediocre. I think there's a lot to think about if you are the Blue Jays general manager or you're a Blue Jays fan, just thinking about the future of this team, and I'm very, very interested to watch. And I think the deadline could be a massive revelation for what the future of this team holds. If we do hear rumors about Bichette going or Vlad going, I think we know what direction this team is going in. And I think the question we have to think about is, should they trade them? Again, personally, I think yes. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's the best course of action for the Blue Jays team. I would look to more trade Guerrero, just because I think you get a lot back for him, and you could end up kind of shuffling this team around. I think Gausman, again, also could go, freeing up a lot of cap room this offseason. Saying cap room likes baseball. Salary cap money, really, is what I should say. So that could be interesting. But I think it's time for the Blue Jays to kind of get the old out and in with the new. You have some nice prospects coming up through the ranks. Ricky Tiedemann is a pitcher I really like. Leo Jimenez is a bat in that prospect pool that I also think is very solid. So I think it might be time again for the Blue Jays to go out with the old, in with the new. And it is going to be interesting to watch this trade deadline and seeing how active the Blue Jays are and seeing what does end up happening with this team. I'm very interested to watch, And my opinion, I think maybe a little bit of a rebuild or retool is in order, but I think trading Guerrero or Bo Bichette would be a drastic step, and I think would signal a lot to this fan base. So I don't know if they'll go that far, but looking to shop a Kevin Gausman is a possibility. Yusei Kikuchi, I think, is 50-50 gone right now just because of the amazing season he's having. Might even do a segment on him in the near future talking about how good he's been. He added a new pitch to his repertoire, which also has helped him a lot, so that's also helping there, so I could talk about him. But yeah, this is the fourth segment here talking about the Blue Jays and just some trade rumors involving them and what I think could end up happening with them in the future. We'll be moving into our fifth and final segment, which is going to be talking about some general roster moves around the league that I did want to touch upon. So yeah, we'll be talking about that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye. And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fifth and final segment, which is going to be talking about some roster moves around the league. I'm going to change the text here. Sorry about that. And just talking about some roster moves I did think were interesting and notable to end up giving my 2 cents on. So we talk about that, and that'll be our fifth segment. So first one I did want to talk about was the Twins. They made not a flurry of roster moves, I'd say, but 2 significant ones over the weekend. First of all, they sent down Eduardo Julian to the minor leagues. Now, Julian was a guy who came out of, not nowhere I'd say, but came out from the prospect pool last year and really took the starting second base job and ran with it. I think he was one of the main reasons why now Seattle Mariner at Jorge Polanco was traded out, and they ended up going with him. Now, Julian also brings a lot of versatility to the table, bringing in, being able to play second base, first base, even third base sometimes. But he was sent down by them after not really a horrible season. I mean, you look at him right now; it's not great. Of course, having a WAR of 0.9 and his weighted runs created plus at 99, so league average. But he started off really well. Got out to a cold stretch recently, going into a really hard slump. And I think it's really more of the Twins kind of sending him down a little bit while they get this infield kind of retooled with with Royce Lewis coming back. It is going to be interesting to see what they do. So I think with Julian in a slump and Royce Lewis coming back, they needed a roster move, and sending Julian down for a little bit to kind of get himself back where he needs to be, slump-wise and hitting-wise, I think is a good move and was a good job by them. So yeah, it is unfortunate that he was sent down, but I expect him to be that back up, and I think he's a really good player for this Twins team and is a big part of their core. Now, bringing back Royce Lewis for this Twins team is something that is a big news for them, and I'm very excited about. Of course, Lewis had a great start to the season versus Kansas City in one game, and then, of course, had a horrible injury and was then out for a significant amount of time and is coming back now for the first time since that first game in June. Now, I think Royce Lewis brings a lot to this Twins team. Of course, I mean, he's a power-hitting second baseman. Of course, a former high first-round pick for the Twins, and really broke out last year in the playoffs against the Blue Jays, having an insane run there, hitting a lot of home runs, and just being overall great. And we kind of saw what his potential finally was and how good he was doing. And looking at the next year, Twins fans got very excited because this is a younger guy who could fill in the infield and create a really great middle infield with Carlos Correa for the significant future. And first game, we saw that with Royce Lewis. He's hitting the ball really well, was doing a great job, and then the crushing news came of his injury, and he was going to be out for a little bit. But you get him back now. He's going to be in that middle infield, sharing time with Carlos Correa, and that should be one of the better middle infields in baseball, and I'm very excited to watch it. Should be a lot of fun, and I'm still high on this Twins team. I still think they're the best team in that division, even with the Royals and Guardians playing that well. Very excited to see what does end up happening with them, and yeah. And again, it is going to just be interesting to see what happens with this Twins team now, with Julian going down and Royce Lewis coming back up. We'll see when Julian does come back up. I think it should be rather soon, but we'll have to end up seeing. Next, we have the Orioles promoting Connor Norby from AAA. Norby was one of the Orioles' top prospects. Of course, the amount of prospects they have in that system is just absolutely insane. I mean, the amount of talent they have there is just, it's, oh my goodness. I understand how bad they've been for a number of years, which is why they have all this talent. But at the same time, just the way they keep calling up people and just it seems like an endless supply of talent is insane. Norby is 23, another young, talented middle infielder in this Baltimore system. He is hitting 286, 374, and 510 in the minor leagues. He has 9 home runs and 36 RBIs. He will be in Toronto for Baltimore, playing Toronto there. Will probably be playing middle infield. I assume will be the second or third baseman for this team, and it'll be interesting to see what the lineup does look like now for Baltimore and what is going to end up happening with them. We do have the lineup for them. It came out around an hour ago. He is batting ninth and playing second base, so it seems like that is going to be the lineup for a little bit now. You, of course, have an infield now of Ryan Mountcastle, Connor Norby, Jordan Westerberg, Gunnar Henderson, an amazing infield. So much young talent there, and it's so good, just incredible right now. So this Orioles team is just insane with all the amount of talent they have, all the young talent, all the good young talent as well. And there's more coming, I'd say. Jackson Holliday still has not been called up again. It'll be interesting to see where he does play if Connor Norby does end up taking the second base job and running with it. So that'll be an interesting dynamic. I'd say a good problem to have. And if any team's trading for a big starting pitcher this deadline, it's going to be the Baltimore, because they just have so much talent that they don't need. It's incredible. They also have Samuel Basallo in this organization, who's the number 13 prospect in baseball according to MLB Pipeline. He's a catcher, so I don't know where he is going to play, considering they have Adley Rutschman, and he's also an incredible talent. Basallo, 19. I think he could be a big part of a trade somewhere. Maybe they don't see him as a catcher long term, and he'll end up playing first base at the outfield or something. I think that's likely, but just the amount of talent this team has is incredible. Colby Mayo is still here as well. Heston Kjerstad is still there as well. So just incredible what they have in this organization, and incredible for the future. So exciting if you're an Orioles fan. And this is what you get when you're bad for this amount of time. So this Orioles team is incredible, and you see the jersey right there. Can't point to it there. Nope. You see it in the background, the Orioles jersey. So that was fitting for today. And very exciting team, and be interesting to watch them in the future. Now, the last one I did want to talk about was Henry Davis. Now, we're talking about top prospects. Well, let's talk about a former first overall pick in Henry Davis. Of course, Henry Davis was a former first overall pick for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Is a catcher and is back up. Was starting the season on the MLB roster for the Pirates, but did end up struggling a bit and was sent down. Now, the Pirates have a lot of catchers on this team. Also, you had Joey Bart, who you traded for from San Francisco, a former second overall pick as well. So a lot of talent in that room, who's done really solid since coming to Pittsburgh. Not sure if he'll really keep up with this, but not really sure if he'll keep up with the amount of damage he has done in Pittsburgh, but still has done really well there. Yasmani Grandal, who's also a nice veteran signing for Pittsburgh, and then of course you have Enny Rodriguez, who is hurt for the rest of the year and will probably be back next year. But a lot of talent in this Pittsburgh catching room. It'll be interesting to see if Davis does stay a catcher in the future. But yeah, very interesting to watch Henry Davis being called back up. I think this is a guy with a lot of talent, of course, from former first overall pick, so he does a lot of hitting talent with him, and I'm very excited to watch him. and very excited to see what does end up happening with him being called back up. Very excited to see if he can end up taking his opportunities and running with it. I'm really excited to watch him. I think he's a really great talent. I still do believe in him, even though he hasn't been that great with Pittsburgh. New York kid, rooting for him. So, yeah, very interesting to see Davis being called back up. Very interesting to see the dynamic of where he's going to end up being played. I think him being a catcher long term is up for discussion, but I think really it's the bat they're looking towards with Davis, and with him being called back up, I think he has to take these opportunities and run with it, with the hitting, and yeah, going to be interesting to see what does end up happening here. So, yeah, very interesting to see him being called back up with Pittsburgh, and will be fascinating to see what does end up happening here with this team. So, yeah, that is the end of our show today, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, hit notification bell to not only get notified when I upload, but all the other great content creators on this channel do. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Anywhere you can get updates on us. It's a beautiful day outside. Enjoy it. We'll see you at baseball tomorrow. And thanks, guys, and thank you for watching. Bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.